Today's thought of the day is if any of you breed the divine thoughts, mind will grasp it and will not eject them because it is the real nature of mind since it has come from the real artery. This is from Showers of Divine Grace, Master Who Leads to Realization. So we'll read that article and then we'll play Pujya Sir's message from Vagaries of Mind. Master Who Leads to Realization message at Madras on 24th February 1973 at the birth centenary of Lalaji Maharaj. We have assembled here on a very auspicious occasion to celebrate the birth centenary of our great master, Samartha Guru Sri Ramchandraji Maharaj of Fatehgarh, UP. We should utilize this occasion in getting into the master and master alone, which will act as food and tonic for spiritual elevation. Remembrance should be in a way that we feel the thought of remembrance oozing out from the objects everywhere. It is the real remembrance which mortals can have. It is a play for our good. Now, a new chapter opens in the web of life. The effect of our deep devotion begins to resound in a way that we feel the ultimate is remembering us. That is the justice of divinity. When you have played your part fully well, the ultimate cannot fall short in playing his part. That is only a beginning of the higher sort of spirituality. As a result of it, our senses become summarized to have their own share in the being. This is my experience. When they are summarized, they become a new force for our regeneration. Now, this is another instrument for our help. When this thing is attained, we have formed a base for our further approaches. It begins to modify itself when the effect of divinity starts to percolate. The base becomes a sort of force and begins to reinforce the substance required for our elevation. When the base is formed within us, the charging with its contents is also there, affecting the entire fiber of our being. These contents are the ingredients of real life, which we can safely call life in life. The main difficulty we find is that all our actions are directed unwisely. Actions are results of thoughts, and thoughts are our own actions. Truly speaking, we give wrong suggestions to the mind. People can object to it. How do we give such suggestions? The environment creates the circumstances to have such ideas. We move in that sort of environment. The rishis of yore used to recommend people to go into the forest or the hills where the environments are natural. The place recommended was to be far from human habitation. If one goes to a high peak of a mountain, he will only find a sort of echo and not any thought. Purity starts from being, and impurities are the results of the wrong suggestions and improper utilization of the inner environment. When all these are combined, a narrowness of use is affected, and this is one of the factors for creating a sort of confusion, sometimes automatically and sometimes forced by circumstances. When all these things are accumulated, they bring different colors. This affects the lower part of mind, which gives direction to the higher part of it. Now, your direction is not correct, so mind itself becomes thorny. We do not create congenial vibrations because we move contrary to reality. Before the world was born, a balanced state prevailed. When the balance was disturbed, we came into existence. I do not want to elaborate the subject metaphysically. The thought for creation stirred up near about the center, and energy began to flow out. What was that? That the first mind, pure and simple, and that has woven all our frame and structure. it brought purity with it, which is still maintained. So when we begin to give wrong suggestions, the mind, which is absolutely pure, expels them in order to maintain its eternal purity. That is the cause of thoughts. In reality, it sends out the contents which appear like a fog covering a certain surface. We call them thoughts. When we are attentive to the thoughts, their power develops. If any of you breed the divine thoughts, mind will grasp it and will not eject them. It is the real nature of mind since it has come from the real art. Take a pause here. So this is today's thought of the day. Any questions, anything to add what we covered so far? We also had a seminar on when the senses become summarized. So when they are summarized, they become a new force for our regeneration. Any questions?
No way.
Go ahead. If a man wants to work out the problems of his life easily, he should give right suggestions to the mind. It is the condition which comes by practice and proper molding of one's self. It is very easy to remain in one's own condition, which is divine. It is the sure process for evolution. A little inclination towards the attainment of the reality will start weaving the future. There are so many processes prevalent in India, and they may be correct. But what is correctness? The process which may put you in the undisturbed state. Vibrations should become all divine. How does it happen? When heaviness is gone, then only thing behind the scene opens to the mind. If any of the methods brings about desired result, it is genuine, right, and natural. Out of so many methods, you have to seek one for yourself, which may bring out the state. If you are really trying for that and have got a real master, the things become very easy and a good deal of time and effort is saved. People can ask how to get such a master. As an answer to it, I can safely say, how can one get such a disciple who may follow what is said above? I must say, for entering into the vast ocean, swimmers and swimming both are needed. So swimming is the part of swimmer, and to teach swimming is the part of master. We can get such a master as can lead us to the extent of his approach if we follow him earnestly. But really speaking, such a master is required as may be able to foment us by his divine power. There are stages in the cosmic regions which we have to cross, and indeed we proceed to a certain length. Afterwards, the power of the Abhyasi fails to get at the subtle force. It is very difficult to cross it unless and until a push is given to the next step, and that is the master's work. I've come across a person who argues with that in him, which is not in himself. Some also say they have made their conscience as guru or master. but I am sure they have not made conscience as their guru, but their own ego. The conscience, as described in the Shastras, is made of four things: manas, mind; chit, deeper conscience; buddhi, cognition; ahankara, ego. If all these become perfectly purified, conscience will give you only correct signals. After the purification of these things, there come the higher powers, and at the same time, purity has now begun all around. I hope people will excuse if I add a little more in the context that incorrect way of worship will lead to the incorrect result. We all desire for realization but have no yearning for it. I pray that we all return to our original condition and see the difference between the earthly and heavenly life. Just one question I have. Here, Master says, right, I come across many a person who argues with that in him which is not in himself. So, can someone elaborate the meaning of that?
Which one?
I have come across many a person who argues with that in him which is not in himself.
Yeah, my understanding of that sentence is, we argue with our ego, but that himself applies to master or God, which doesn't have ego. So that is unless unless we become completely egoless, uh, we won't be able to see the we won't be able to clearly hear the master's voice.
Yeah.
So most people, when they argue, right, it is with their perception, with their opinions about God, and that is also a sort of an ego. So that himself uh, uh, argues with that in him, which is not in himself. So that H, the first H is small, so that applies to the self, and which is not in himself. That other H, that himself H is big, so that applies to master or God. So unless we subdue our ego, we will not be able to reason properly. That is what my understanding is.
Sir?
It's basically the God or Guru is the purity itself. And that purity is basically not available to these people. Second H is it a capital H or a small h? Because in my book it is small h.
So the first him is small h, but in the himself.
Second him himself, is it a capital H or a small h? Because my book it is printed as small h.
So I think that's a correction which was done later. It's a capital H, the printed one. Yeah.
In such case, that is the purity itself. So unless you have that purity of the divine in you, it is the ego itself that takes over. And you try to argue with yourself, with your ego itself, which is usually not convincing. Because you always try to put your point across as if you are the right person. When you are arguing with somebody, you always say that you are the right person. Your view is right. So always we try to argue with the other person, or the ego in yourself, and try to convince yourself that you are right. So that is the problem most of the times. For example, if you try to see in the movies that the ego comes out and talks to this fellow, they try to argue with each other. So it is not, that is the always this fellow thinks that he is the right, and the other person try to convince himself that he is right. That's my understanding. We try to find an excuse to say that we are right. Try to find a way to say that we are right, though we are not always right.
Inside we know we are not right, but still we try to show that we are right.
No, not necessarily. Our ego makes it feel that we are right.
Yeah.
So, which is not that there in himself. So, yeah, purity is one way to look at it, but I looked at ego also can be looked at as an impurity.
Anything else to add in this?
So, one observation in the entire literature of beloved Babuji Maharaj and even his talks, so many odd questions were put to him, but he never argued. He always gave explanations. But whether God exists or not, why did God create miseries? So many questions were put in a manner that typically leads to can lead to arguments. But Babuji Maharaj always gave an answer from a very sublime angle, and he never put forth any. If you see, nowhere the answer appears as argumentative. So it's always a truth shown from a very. I mean, it's essentially truth from the highest angle. Right? So he has shown light even to those who would have come with a sense of arguing. That's just what I see in his entire literature and voice real. All the answers are extremely subtle, and they don't lead the questioner to anywhere on the line of an argument.
What he made is not an argument. In what he made is basically a dialogue.
Right.
So through the dialogue, he tried to convey the truth.
Yes.
The argument is different from dialogue. Argument, you try
Yes.
to win over the other fellow. In dialogue, you try to learn from the other fellow.
Yeah, correct, sir.
Anything else? Mishra ji, Atul Mishra, I think he is there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here only.
Yeah.
The explanation which Vidyadhar and sir kind of explained it further, like it's essentially the shade of ego which is there in one, but it is not there in the master.
Yeah, it is a purity in itself.
Right.
So shall we move to the Bodhayanti Parasparam, Vagaries of Mind. I will play the audio.
7. On the occasion of the seminar, truly speaking, we give wrong suggestions to the mind. Printed in Bodhayanti Parasparam, Volume 7, Chapter 12.
The topic of this seminar, truly speaking, we give wrong suggestions to the mind, is a sentence taken from the message given by the Master on the historical event of the centenary celebrations of the Samartha Guru, Sri Ramchandraji Maharaj of Fatehgarh in 1973 at Chennai. Master on that day was beaming with spiritual splendor, and in his message gave out all the aspects of his system in Raj Yoga in a crisp manner. This sentence as such is not new wisdom. As we know, our tradition repeatedly stated that our mind is the cause for our bondage as well as our liberation. John Milton said, the mind is in its own place and in itself can make heaven of hell and hell of heaven. Our quest to know our true nature has drawn us to this path of Raj Yoga. Obviously, the quality of our life cannot be very good if we do not know who and what we are. It is only the naive and superficial person who can think that at the moment of death we just become a corpse. Every sensible person has always sought to know his or her roots or the homeland. Every one of us here spent quite a bit of our life in search of our source, and many of us do feel to have had a glimpse of the unknown. Paradox it may seem, but that's what it is. Some of us in fact do feel that they are successful in their endeavor, and the mystery of it is that only when they had become a corpse or living dead, they realized and started their real life. What is said may appear ridiculous and bizarre, but that is the manner in which the wisdom is passed on through millennia by good people who understood human nature and wanted to pass on the teaching for having a better life and a reasonable hope for the future. The wise Socrates said, as he looked forward to his last hour, wars, factions, and fighting have no other origin than the same body and its lusts. We must set the soul free from it. We must behold things as they are. And having thus got rid of the foolishness of the body, we shall be pure and hold converse with the pure, and shall in our own selves have complete knowledge of the incorruptible, which is, I take it, no other than the very truth. Socrates proclaimed, I sought to persuade every man among you that he must look to himself and seek virtue and wisdom before he looks to his private interests, and look to the state before he looks to the interests of them. That this should be the order which he observes in all his actions. If we try to understand that what the wise man was telling in his last hour, namely that the body and its desires being hatred, revenge, jealousy, and as a consequence wars and suffering, we find that it is as much valid today as it was 2 millennia before. The desire to overcome, to compete, to be more powerful, more rich, to have more possessions is a struggle that brings great stress and unhappiness in our lives in the modern times. If we just look at an ecosystem in nature, we see that adaptation and cooperation are the principles that prevail. Order and organization are essential in every natural environment. Master was saying this only in his 4th commandment. Implementation of this maxim would ensure good, sensible, and balanced administration in human affairs. Robbing, cheating, lying are not conducive to prosperity, but to unrest and confusion. This is true not only in spiritual matters, but applies to mundane matters too. Seek virtue and wisdom, says Socrates. What does it mean? It means plainly that we should use our intuition, which is the subtle aspect of our intelligence, the mental gift that allows us to understand the deep aspect of situations and events. We are not to tend to use impulsivity, brute force, aggression, and revenge, but we should let our superior intellect clarify every situation, be detached, be impersonal, and do not allow ourselves to be sunk into the mud like an animal. In the yogic and Vedantic terminology, it means that we should develop viveka. The mind gives directions to our actions. Whether they are good or bad depends on the goal we have chosen. Goals are very important in life. They help us to determine the path or means through which we are going to achieve the goal and achieve greater results. Having a goal is tantamount to making a promise to ourselves. However, many aspirants make a wise decision of the goal they want to achieve, but forget a main ingredient for effective action, namely passion, which Master calls restlessness. Restlessness is a driving power that enables us to manifest our goal. Many set their goal to be oneness with the Master, but do not believe that they will attain the same. This is because they lack faith in themselves, and Master wants that we should have faith that we will reach the goal. But our mind misguides us mischievously, quoting the case studies of the failure of persons who practiced some other method, and also the enormous ordeals the aspirants have gone through in the systems of the past to attain the goal. This wrong feed to the mind is the most detrimental input we are aware of in sadhana, and many leave the sadhana when faced with trying circumstances. While importance of setting up the goal with clarity is essential, and that it by itself can be called an aspect of viveka, it is twice as important to have a proper structure that excites us and gives images of success. The goal should be specific and precise, and we should have a detailed idea of the goal and the various stages before attaining the same. Many aspirants confuse the goal as given by the Master because they accept consciously or unconsciously the goal to mean something which the Master never meant. They try to somehow fit nothingness or void into some tangible and manipulative concept for the mind to play with. This is the one area where I have found many aspirants accepting the wrong suggestions regarding the goal. Goal clarity that is spoken of many times does not carry any clarity, but aids the impure mind to articulate the same according to its fancy. We should be able to evaluate our progress towards the goal. The mind accepts and receives many suggestions about the progress one has made based on imaginary notions and hallucinations. I personally had many aspirants reporting rather irresponsibly about the stage in which they are, while the fact remained that they were far off from the stage and were playing into the tricks of the mind. It should be noted that every spiritual condition is an aspect of the one, and there is a need for reverence and balance in reporting the condition. The goal should be attainable and within our reach. Realization and enlightenment is not the prerogative of the recluse. We can learn the alpha and omega of spirituality in the environment of the home or in the social setup in which we live. Here in this area, Master has brought in the concepts of trusteeship and due attachment. The mischievous mind, however, asks us to accept all sorts of manipulation of these concepts, and most of the time effectively succeeds in making us think and act in such a manner that is least conducive to progressive spirituality. The goal should be realistic, and it should be something within our physical and emotional reach. This would mean that we should have examples of such men and women who have reached the goal. While it is undeniable that there were saints and realized souls in our system, and are also there even now, our mind, which has learnt the art of doubting the doubt itself, makes many an aspirant feel that it is something that is unattainable. This is a problem of faith in oneself, the method and the master. The evaluations of self many times suffer from this defect. As far as method is concerned, there are many instances where the aspirant, even though he is making sufficient progress according to the intensity of sadhana he puts in the system, considers repeatedly and ad nauseum the virtue and advantages of the systems he never practiced, or those that were being practiced with practically no spiritual progress. It is unfortunate that some aspirants even start making irresponsible judgments about the master calling him a liar, etc. All these are due to impure mind, which plays its jokes and tricks with our aspirations. It is important to consider why the mind does these tricks. Now we know that the mind is capable of evil thoughts. In this sense, the thoughts that work as obstacles in reaching our goal. The question would be, how is it so? Dr. K.C. raises this issue when he says the question of questions for religion would be, how does evil arise at all in a God-created world? Or if evil infected this creation from the very beginning so as to be the cause of all creation itself, how is it proposed to explain it? There are various reasons, and one of the primary reasons would be that every evil has a nucleus of good, which is exaggerated or perverted. For example, we know that people play up one set of values against another. For instance, social justice against real justice. And what is demanded is a compromise or mutual adjustment of these values. However, one is negated by the other, and there results other compromises which defeat the other conditions of moral life. As it was said of power, that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We find certain values have a tendency to try to corrupt truth, ahimsa, asteya, aparigraha and brahmacharya, which fortunately cannot be corrupted. Even an abstract devotion to them is preferable to casuistry regarding them. This is a truth that the Western ethical and religious thinkers have to learn even today. Whatever casuistry was practiced, it left the moral subject more helpless than ever. Master, however, explains that this problem arises because the lower mind gives directions to the higher mind. The higher and lower minds have to live together in mutual harmony, and the lower mind should receive the directions of the higher is the principle of life. However, the lower mind has started dictating terms to the higher mind, and this is the main problem. That would mean that our self and selfish concerns condition the decisions we make about a person or a thing or a situation. Everything is viewed and analyzed through the pair of glasses of the lower mind. He asserts that the original nature of mind is purity, and it expels all thoughts that are impure, and that is the theory of our master on the origin of thoughts. This theory is applicable not only when we meditate, but throughout all our activities in life. Undeniably, thoughts about the divine are about the most pure thoughts that mortals can have. Therefore, if the mind is purified, more and more silence and balance gets restored, and the torture of thoughts gets reduced. But then, how to develop such a practice of thinking about the divine constantly in a totally polluted atmosphere and environment is a question of practical importance. Master in this context says that if the intensity of thoughts flowing in the direction of the lower mind gets reduced and the intensity of flow of thoughts to the higher mind gets increased, the purpose would be served. The question remains how to achieve this with an impure mind. Lord Krishna leaves the question there and does not give any solution other than suggesting abhyasa and vairagya. Master, on the other hand, says that the help of a competent brother can be taken, and he would, through his internal divine power, exercise pranahuti and divert the flow to the higher plane and also further on to the divine realms. Pranahuti, which is working wonders with us and is bringing in radical changes in our behavior and attitudes, is a great boon to humanity by the most revered Samartha Guru, Sri Ramchandraji Maharaj of Fatehgarh. Let us see the conditions in which this method arose in its present form. That the world during the 19th and the earlier part of the 20th centuries has been passing through the death pangs of an old era and the birth pangs of a new era is evident to all. The old principles of materialism and self-interest, old sectarian and patriotic prejudices and animosities were perishing, discredited amidst the ruins they have wrought in. And in all lands we see signs of a new spirit of faith, of brotherhood and internationalism that is bursting the old bonds and overrunning the old boundaries. Revolutionary changes of unprecedented magnitude have been occurring in every department of human life. The old era is not yet dead. It is engaged in a life and death struggle with the new. Evils that are in plenty, gigantic and formidable, but They are being exposed, investigated, challenged, and attacked with new vigor and hope. Clouds there are in plenty, vast and threatening, but the light is breaking through and is illumining the path of progress and revealing the obstacles and pitfalls that obstruct the onward way. In the 18th century, it was different. The spiritual and moral gloom that enshrouded the world was relieved by hardly a ray of light. It was like the darkest hour before the dawn, when the few lamps and candles that remain alight do little more than make the darkness visible. It was a time for a once more divine revelation to the torpid, frivolous children of men, if they were not to sink altogether into the ape condition. Compared with the 18th century, the present time after the advent of Samartha Guru Lalaji Maharaj is, as it were, the dawn after darkness, or as a spring after winter. The world is stirring with new life, thrilling with new ideals and hopes. Things that but a few years ago seemed impossible, and dreams that dare not be dreamt are now accomplished facts. All this is because of the Advent, is our firm faith, and the special personality structured by him is the guiding master to us and for generations to come. This special personality is the light bringer of the spiritual world, as the sun is the light bringer of the natural world. Just as the material sun shines over the earth and causes the growth and development of material organisms, so also through the divine manifestation, our growth and development in spiritual plane will happen. As there is nothing special as spiritual and material, our destinies in all areas will be guided and monitored by the great master, provided we follow the natural and virtuous path he has given. We all individually and collectively have to evolve ourselves and thus humanity as a whole beyond our existing known boundaries. This means that individually we are to change from our existing state of being to become a higher, more evolved state of being. We have discussed that our personalities are conditioned by the environment, physical, vital, mental, and spiritual. Different cultures impose different conditioning upon the minds of their citizens by virtue of their way of life. It all amounts to limitations of mind. To change from the personality we have picked up from the society and the environment into a new personality of our own design, on the lines of the commandments given to us by our Master, is the evolutionary task we all face. This is a task that moves past in the face of family, tradition, culture, religion, color, status, wealth, fashion, gender, fame, or in short, against the face of all the accepted values of our societies. Never before have we been given so much knowledge to challenge our inherited belief systems and to intimidate the self-imposed limitations of our minds. How we develop as we gnaw into the future can only be limited by our own level of acceptance and our own willingness to let go of the past. And our willingness to let go of the past is evidence of our lack of understanding or outright stubbornness towards change, which itself is due to mischievous mind play. What we need to develop is our own ideal, not one that we have been conditioned to by the tradition, but one that is our own creation based on the tenets given by the Master. Master has given the path of grace, a path that can in fact be different for different persons based on their samskaras. Many aspirants have odd notions of the role they have to play in the divine work and also seem to be anxious to know their status in the scheme of things. When Master asks us to mold ourselves again, our mind starts playing its tricks and would like us to fit into the modern day society. The social and power politics come into play, and there is always a politician waiting to use our image for our gains, for his gains. It is no wonder that the present day masters are visited by the most important social and political bigwigs. We should note that evolution is not about being accepted by an existing image, but is about changing and moving beyond the boundaries of that accepted image, which is dictated by the mind control that advertising and marketing is so demonically good at. It may, in a sense, be said that we must become like the caterpillar that transforms itself into the beautiful butterfly. The caterpillar represents the old personality, and the butterfly represents a new life that is yet to unfold. Firstly, the caterpillar seems to get into a dream and starts dreaming of its new form. It goes into the cocoon and it liquefies, it dissolves the past, and out of the same energy it forms a new life in accordance with its dream. The new form comes only after it liquefies or annihilates the old form. Humanity at present is in a state that is the same as the caterpillar that has yet to embark upon its remarkable transformation. In the fortunate few who got into the fold of the Master, who is ever eager to embrace all, such a process of liquefaction has happened and they embarked on their own new form. We can never evolve beyond our old notions, about our odd notions, about the level we can achieve. Very few people will be able to accept that they can be a master until they witness somebody else being in that state of purity. Even then, their own acceptance will rely on their acceptance of equality with the Master. Master, when he said he makes masters, was making an extraordinary statement. How many accept such equality? No wonder we need courageous persons who can control their minds and make it an instrument of the divine. Once the design of the goal and the intermediary stages are enshrined in our heart, in our mind, then the individual components can be formulated and worked upon. These are the elements of the sadhana that spiritual masters have spoken about and are recorded as personal affirmations in their writings, letters and diaries. A diligent effort is required to replace the demons from our past thinking. Only when the new knowledge is added to the quagmire of our mind will the alchemical process start to take place. The metamorphosis of the caterpillar is likened to the human alchemical process of turning the lead of the past into the gold of the spiritual truth. It may be rather radical when it is stated that our goal should be to become masters. It is ideal for humanity as a whole. Any climb down from that point is a compromise to an evolved mind. At the same time, we must realize that our own evolution progresses at the rate of our own acceptance of the new knowledge and its integration into our lives. This is possible only when we yield to the divine dictate of transformation of the human to divine. This demands courage, a lion-hearted approach, a do-or-die attitude. Only such men are sought for in this era. Molding ourselves and living a new way of life that bears no resemblance to our past, that is choosing to live as a butterfly instead of continuing to be a caterpillar, is a hard task indeed. This is so because change is always uncomfortable, not only for us, but for those that observe it in us. We are moving forward in our life, and they are standing still. They can no longer relate to us because we are at a loftier vantage point. But we have to continue to play the game with them if we still want them to be in our life. Can we really afford to compromise, or do we fly away and leave them standing in their own confusion, hoping that one day they will follow our lead? This is an unhappy situation in which some of us are stranded in our effort to move as forerunners of the new era. The more spiritually advanced we become, the more difficult we find it to fit in with the accepted values of the present day society. We eventually reach a point when we cease to trying to fit in and realize it is only our truth that matters to us. This is why it is said that masters are crippled by the consciousness of humanity. We need to learn that an impeccable entity can no longer effectively operate here amongst persons governed and dictated by the lower mind. There will no longer be any desire in such an entity to partake of the consciousness here. But once the masters make the mistake of forming associations or creating institutions, they cannot avoid the prison they have chosen, and all the values and spiritual stages gained or compromised, leaving them unhappy souls. However, in the absence of our own ideal, there is one ideal that we can focus upon that is not currently in abundance in human consciousness, namely unconditional love. Such is the possibility for the evolved souls if they keep their goal in view and love that with their entire physical, vital, mental and spiritual being. Love Him who loves all becomes possible only for persons who are advanced in the spiritual way of life In such a love, there is no lack, and it is all through abundance. Creating a new life for ourselves is what we do in between lives in the planes of bliss. It is elementary to know that in all the planes, from the physical through the vital, mental, aspiration, and spiritual, there are various shades of bliss. Laya or absorption is had many times in our sadhana. During meditations, it is common observation of the aspirants that we are not aware of the body, and we seem to be born in a fresh body after a deep meditation. When we enter back our body, it becomes almost impossible to live what we have created in bliss, because this brain has no memory of what was held in the core of our being. Also, the body imposes on us a mindset based on our samskaras, and it has a different agenda to what our total being is seeking to experience. Our progress in spiritual life often gets blown to smithereens by the demands of our samskaras and the conditioning of our minds by society. The only chance we have in life is to wake up to the knowledge and be born again to a new life of our own, designed on the lines of the natural path. Life as per the path is lofty enough to resemble a life of bliss. Our prayer, thinking the Master to be the ocean of bliss, and we are merged in it, is experienced when there is strict compliance to the commandments of the Master. It's wise to wake up and respond to the call of our Master. Awake, O sleepers, it is the hour of the dawn, while we are in the body, because then we are giving ourselves every chance of fulfilling it. Life then gains a meaning. It is not about our acquiring more and more money or sex, or being somebody who is acceptable to others and to our society. To accept and adopt this wisdom in life demands determination, or what Master says, girding up our loins. When this determination is further assisted by the pranahuti, we find our path easier to tread. It is really about fulfilling the spiritual journey or yatra in our quest for mastery. The message taken up for discussion in this seminar is, as already stated, drawn from the message of the Master in 1973 Basant celebrations. We can hear the voice of the Master thanks to the efforts made by our associates and disciples of the Master. The magicians have a vessel from which water flows out, irrespective of the several times when it is emptied. This they call, in this country, water of Bharat. For me, this message is one such vessel from which nectar flows, notwithstanding the number of times it is emptied. It is but wisdom to share the nectar with all. Thank you. Namaste.
Quite deep in it to contemplate. If there is nothing, then yeah, we'll meet next Sunday.